Welcome to the Buzz on Biz, the show where we spotlight local businesses making a big impact in our community. Today, we're talking about something that affects all of us eventually, aging. But what if getting older wasn't about slowing down, but about finding new energy, purpose, and connection? Well, our guest is Peggy Jacques, a nurse educator and the visionary behind the Graceland Center for Purposeful Aging, a nonprofit senior center in Peoria that's redefining what retirement can look like, from fitness classes to lifelong learning to deep community engagement. Peggy is showing that aging with intention isn't just possible, it's powerful. So let's dive in. Hello, Peggy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you. I am too.
So let's start with your story. So, what inspired you to create the Graceland Center for Purposeful Aging?
Well, I come from a large family, and in large families, children are often busy off playing by themselves and or with their siblings. And we had elders in my neighborhood that were very welcoming, and so I would often go over to their houses, and we would have little teas, and they taught me about how to garden and how to behave. And I grew up at their knee and at the with my grandparents, my grandma from my dad's side especially. And I learned that older people had a gentler touch, had listened to your stories, and really cared about who you were as a person, and listened much more deeply than my poor mom with 9 children. And so, and then my mom was a nurse. She was a nurse through the World War II era. And um, I learned from her the care and compassion of all people. And so when she returned to work, after the youngest were old in school, I then later volunteered with her in a nursing home. And I met a blind lady who really taught me what it was like to be vulnerable. I had no idea, as a kid. And so we became best buddies. I visited her often, and I wanted to be a nurse, and I grew up to be a nurse. And I knew I worked in many nursing homes, and although I love the care of elders, I was never in a nursing home that was well staffed. And it broke my heart. And I generally left to work elsewhere because of the safety. And it really bothered me that we didn't have good nursing homes for our elders. And so I thought when our youngest got graduated and went off to college that that was going to be my task. After our kids were, I was really going to just dive into that. And I had some friends who said, that's really not a possibility. There's too many factors for you to make the best nursing home ever. And so I thought, well, honestly, I felt like that's what God wanted me to do. So I was kind of befuddled. So I took a course through the University of Phoenix because I knew I needed to learn updated laws and whatever was impacting elders. And so I took a healthcare gerontology certification course. And as part of that, really understood much more deeply all the legal entities that are involved with the care and as we get older, the issues facing us, and also the culture and how much other people really don't respect older adults in our country. And so, as part of that course, there's a capstone project, and you needed to find an unmet need in your community. And even though I have my master's in community health, I ran blood pressure clinics in the community. I worked with the health department. Um, I made home visits with home care and students. I didn't realize that Peoria didn't have a senior center. And so I thought, well, that's something I can do. I had no idea what I was getting into. And so I started my communication with the Agency on Aging, with churches, with community groups, and went to the Small Business Development Council because I haven't been a business owner. I don't come from business owners. I didn't know what. how to get started. And finally, someone from the Small Business Development Council said, "Oh, you're not a business, you're a nonprofit." And I said, "Oh, great. What's that mean?" 'Cause I didn't know. So he helped me get started, and I had a board of very supportive friends, and we got our ducks in a row right in March of 2020. And so we know what happened then, right? COVID hit, and so we went forward. We got our policies and bylaws, and had our first board meeting in August of 2020 in a open aired room with masks, and got started. And because I thought this is where we can provide a oasis. And originally, that was what I called it, oasis, because I wanted it to be a place of refreshment and welcoming and helping people embrace getting older and how to live that to their best ability. So that's our roots.
Wow. So you bring up some interesting points to me, Peggy, about being an entrepreneur. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you have a vision and you want that vision, but you're going to have some naysayers along the way saying that's not possible and all. But a true entrepreneur like you pushes those naysayers away and goes forward with their vision because it was given to you for a purpose.
Mhm.
So that was
Find
great.
the tribe. That's so true. And to find the people who've been further down the path and who have experience, and to be humble enough to know to listen to them. I know I have one dear mentor, Linda Markle, and when you're faced with the barricades of what's against you, um, she always reminds me, just take the next step, just take the next step. And it's that tribe of mentors that I would never be here without them.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other important thing that you brought up, Peggy, that all people who are considering going into business is the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. They
Mhm.
are a valuable resource,
Right,
and all their information is free. You don't have to
right,
pay for it, so you can go there, and they're there to help you to help businesses to start.
right.
So if you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea for a business, go to the SBDC. They're in Bradley University there, and check them out. They're they're looking forward to helping businesses to grow.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that was and Distillery Lab had just gotten started. Again, another reach out that connected me. They weren't up and running yet. I have been in recent contact with them, and they're again very supportive, because they know it takes connection to other people, and it takes different ideas, different approaches. So, yeah, I think in that regard, Peoria is rich in resources and um, people who have gone past that barrier and can keep calling you forward.
Exactly. Yeah, I love the distillery labs too. They're a good incubator for, especially if you're uh, small, but I think more for big businesses. If you have a big idea, Distillery Labs is good. They have a couple G
Yeah,
beta and alpha beta programs to help you to launch a business.
right.
So they are a great resource also
Mm,
for people to try.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So moving on, Peggy. So how does Graceland's approach to senior care differ from traditional models?
We have a culture that views aging as a detriment, that there is not a lot of positive involved with aging. And our approach is that aging is a privilege because we've all lost people far too young. And so every day is another blessing and another opportunity, and that we still have so much to offer and to give back to our community. And so in fact, we have a birthday bash every month, and celebrate the birthdays of that month. And it's joyful. and encouraging. And so I think that's our primary difference in the attitude toward aging. And the people that come, oftentimes, in fact, we just had a speaker yesterday that was from the University of Illinois originally. She's an audiologist, and she called out the attitude of ageism and our own view. And that when we view aging as an opportunity and with gratitude and look for opportunity to grow and to learn and to love on other people and to connect, we add years to our life. Is it? I mean, and research shows that. And so I think that's our premise. Now, I'll give you a fact, Bill, that is discouraging when you listen to initially. So, the Older Adult Act in 1965 established Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And that was a huge event, right? Older adults were recognized for who they were and their needs as they were getting older and how to provide for them. And because prior to that, people didn't live that long. Honestly, the biggest advancement we've had in the past 100 years is not that we've gone to the moon and that we have the internet and all of that. The biggest advancement is that we have extended our lifespans by a third. We have medication, we have clean water, we have immunizations, we have shelter. So that has been a huge advancement because oftentimes, and in our cultures, right, people would work until they could no longer work. And then they would help their families, and their families would take care of them. And then they generally passed away in their 60s and 70s. And now, heavens to Betsy, we are living 20 to 30 years longer than even 2 generations ago. So, but we don't necessarily have that stamina to stay in the workforce. And young people need those jobs. And so when people do retire from the workplace, there's this big gap. Who am I? I've been a plumber my whole life. I've been a nurse my whole life. I've been an educator. I literally sat across, I just retired from nursing, as you mentioned, and I remember this educator in his 90s, and he is still volunteering in the schools with art. And he said, I am no one if I'm not an educator. And, I just was so moved by that because that is who he is, and it's important for him to be able to do that. There is a role transition though, because sometimes we're not able to be that anymore. And then who are we? Well, because maybe we have a stroke or maybe we can't get down on our knees to do the job we used to do. So there's an identity change with retirement, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other avenues. And when you're in community, then you see, oh, that person used to do this, but then they're doing that. So I could do something too. Maybe I could learn a new skill, or maybe I could read to children, or maybe I can go volunteer at a food pantry. Or maybe I've really always wanted to be an artist and I've never got the opportunity. So let's see if I got some talent. To me, that is the joy of offering opportunity and physical and mental and emotional health. Yeah,
So I like that. So basically, from what I'm hearing is during retirement doesn't mean it's the end. It's a door to open new opportunities of
yeah,
other things that you can move forward to and
yeah.
proceed with.
And I think, we're in an era where there's still people who are enjoying those big pensions. But most of us aren't gonna get them. You know, there was a boom, right, in the big manufacturing with labor unions and that kinda thing, where there's an era where people did retire, and had a pretty chunk of a pension, and they could travel, and they could have that second home. Um, that's not reality for a lot of people. Um, People have such misperceptions. They think anybody over the age of 80 is in a nursing home, where only 4% of older adults go into a nursing home. They have the perception that people are all on fixed incomes. Well, that's not true. They have the perception that everyone is entitled or gets through Medicare silver sneakers. So we don't need to have these programs. Well, that's not true. You know,
Yeah.
it's just many myths people have of resources that are available to them, or that we're stricken with certain things, or we're doomed to dementia. So dispelling the myths of aging is critical so that those opportunities are possible, and that hope is a good thing.
So you brought up another thing earlier. You said about celebrating birthdays, people. So my mother-in-law just turned 100, and tomorrow
Oh,
we're having a big celebration for her at the facility that she's at. 100 years old,
look at the changes. Oh
and
my god.
she's spicy. I mean, she wants to win. She's competitive.
I
She has
love it.
my wife over all the time. They're playing card games, and she is competitive. So her brain is always working, is
Yes,
always going, and I think that helps out a lot.
absolutely. I love that. I love that. Yeah, that and I'm so happy. I mean, that's just a monumental uh, road. Can you imagine? I mean, in 2025, they just finished World War One. They're in the roaring 20s, Prohibition. I mean, the history that she's lived through.
Yeah,
My God.
exactly.
Yeah.
Russian, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam.
Right. In her midlife, in her the middle of her early years for World War II.
She watched computers, cell phones. I mean,
Yeah.
technology and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah.
I interviewed a woman who was 98 about a year ago, and I asked her, who was raised on a farm, and I asked her, what's the biggest difference that you think? And she said cars. And because she said they would take an entire day to go visit a family member on Sunday. They'd pack up and take the buggy with the horse, and the pace of life was so much more relaxed. And I mean, they were busy. They had a lot of chores to do, but the priorities were much clearer, you know, family, take care of your family, take care of one another, get your work done, and enjoy. I mean, they were outside more. Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, enjoy your party.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So one of the things the Graceland Center for Purposeful Aging. What does purposeful aging, what does that term mean to you, Peggy?
Wonderful question. So there are various authors who talk about what are the priorities of all of us in our life. And one of them mentioned that, of course, health is always a top priority for most people, and then finances. Um, but then the next priority, because we're not raising families except for some grandparents, but for the most part now we have to find a new, what does this segment of my life mean? I'm not starting a new career. I'm not raising my family. I'm what's that mean? And so finding a new purpose for our talents and for our likes is critical to our survival, because if we're not needed or we don't serve a purpose, why are we here? And so when you go through retirement, most people go through phases. And the first phase is usually woohoo! I get to sleep in, or I'll take a vacation, or my life is not bound by the time clock anymore. And so, that's usually the first phase, and then the next phase, honestly, is a little bit of despair. It's, "Okay, is that all there is? Now what do I do?" And so the third phase is the searching. Well, what's this mean? What's important to me? And what, you know, the the people that I work with every day, as they're, in their 80s and 90s, um, they don't take a day for granted. There's today, because we might not have tomorrow. Now, we all know that in the back of our mind, but it's very clear as they get older. So they want to use their today. So there's an explore. How should I use my time? And then the next phase is really finding a new purpose. And for some people, it is another maybe 10 years of doing something different or volunteering, or making friends. We have a lot of people who take care of each other. They'll take somebody to the doctor, or they'll meet for lunch, or they'll give them a call and see how they're doing, or they'll serve in their church. So I think working through that on your own sometimes is scary because you think there's something wrong with you. Like, shouldn't I be enjoying this? But I'm a little lonely, or I don't quite feel like I fit in quite like I used to. So when you do that in community, which is what Graceland Center is creating with Purposeful, is then you have ideas. We have speakers with different ideas coming all the time. You have ideas and people to share that with, and making friends, and it's always a comfort. Like, how when your kids were little, you would think, I'm the only parent that yelled at my child today. And then you talk to somebody else as they're exasperated with theirs, and they're like, "Oh, come on. You're" It's a support. So, yeah, that's what we mean by purposeful. We want people to get into that phase where they can look at new purposes for their life here.
Right, because purpose gives you reason.
Mhm,
Instead of just sitting around doing life day to day, purpose gives you a reason for wanting to get up, a
mhm,
reason for wanting to go out there. So
mhm,
I love that purposeful aging, helping people in our advanced ages to find another purpose in their life.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's a new phase, and, just like any new phase, going to kindergarten, going to high school, going to college, getting married, whatever, it's a new phase, and we don't honor that in our culture. Um, Speaking of culture, I do wanna mention one of the mentors from the Small Business Development Council that helped us get started, Philip Lockwood, he, heard my business pitch. I was ready to go find a building and get started, and he said, "Oh, hold on." He goes, Any business has to have a market, whether or not it's a business or a nonprofit. And so before you launch your product, you need to make sure you have a market. And if this is a culture in Peoria that for some reason decided not to, have a senior center, then you've got your work cut out for you because that's not a priority at this point. So you have to make it a priority. So, as I was mentioning earlier, I said about the Older Adult Act in 1965, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there were federal funds available to make senior centers, and most communities took that money. They developed a senior center. Springfield's senior center for Central Illinois is 50 years old. Peoria, Bloomington Normals is 25 years old. Pecans is 40 years old. So there were communities. In fact, Peoria is the eighth largest city in Illinois, and it is the only one in the top 10, if not 20, that doesn't have one. So, what kind of culture do we have here? Why has this community not recognized the needs of older adults and developed that to the point where we have a community center for them? I don't know.
Definitely sounds like we have a market there. I mean, everyone's getting old, even in Peoria. People
Right.
are getting old, so the market is definitely there. So,
And the appetite is there. In 2022, when COVID was enough that we didn't have to wear masks, um, we had showcase event, and we had standing room only. We were at the Proctor Recreation Center down on the south end, and we had 10 vendors. We had over 100 people there, and we pitched what we were going to do for physical, mental, and emotional well-being and what that meant. And it was a resounding yes, let's do this. Um, so then we started doing programs in churches and libraries and community centers and assisted living facilities, because people don't know what they don't know. And so helping them understand what it is that we were talking about. There's a misconception that senior centers are adult daycare centers, and that is only in communities that don't have one because they don't know the difference. So, OSF Senior World is a wonderful facility for people who need supervision, who need care, and need to be kept safe. Their loved ones bring them there for their betterment or for respite care so that they can go to work. But it's a licensed a facility that provides care versus a senior center that is for independent living. It is for people who can function on their own. They might need a wheelchair, or they might need a walker, or they might need a ride, but they're able to come and participate and learn and enjoy. It's a wellness center for independent living people. So um, helping get that idea across in Peoria is my biggest battle. Money is always the biggest battle, but if you once people get the idea, they're incredulous that we don't have one, and of course we should have one. Um, so so that's the culture I'm trying to make. That people, you're right, we have a market, but they don't know that they need this. The perception of aging is it just happens, and we're victims to it or whatnot. So our job is to help educate people that, nope, you can stay active. It's to your betterment. Look at your mother-in-law, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, speaking of like my mother-in-law, so what kind of programs do you offer at your center, and how do they support the residents' mind, body, and spirit?
It's a really good question. In fact, I'm writing evaluation on a grant, and I was looking through all the different programs that we've provided. And I think I have, just in this past year, the different programs that we've had is over 52. Yep. And we do things like stresses, how to manage your stress. What are some of the history of Peoria? I had no idea we had a carnival, permanent carnival down at La Fresca, down on the riverfront with huge tents and magic acts and just things I had no idea about. Home safety, fraud prevention, loneliness, how to prevent it, brain health, staying hydrated. Um, we've had potlucks and ice cream socials, how to garden, insurance. That's always a question. Anybody that's gotten have to look at some of the Medicare plans. Goodness. Um, we've done herbal remedies. We've had like how to use a smartphone and a computer, those kinds of things. We do by popular demand. People like watching movies together. It's kind of like a fun thing. And so we got a movie license. So we play movies, and they're all, PG 13 kind of movies. And then we have like a discussion, like, what did you notice about this? What did you feel like the plot was? And even some of the older familiar movies, it's good for our brains to like go back and reflect and think about some of the things that the movie represented. Um, So that's on Tuesday, and then our scheduled programming is on Wednesday, and we're gonna start a new, day on Thursday, because we just received another big, grant so we can open up another day, and that day, people have asked to have it be more open. Like, there's people interested in starting a book club, some people interested in playing games. That we have some hardcore, like your mother-in-law, card people and Scrabble people. I'm a bit intimidated by them. um, and then so we'll see. Thursday will be starting in October. But also, one of the biggest things that we've started is a community meal. So, Neighborhood House provides congregate meals for free for people over the age of 60. They do ask for a donation if you're able, but they're a hot meal, they're delicious, they're made at Neighborhood House, and then one of their persons brings them to us and serves them, so it's done by a licensed, health department food handler, and, has been magical because they people eat together and it's homey. You just kid and tarry over conversation when you've got food in front of you, and it's nutritious.
So you're saying that community meal, is that just for the residents or is that for anyone over 60 who can come to that?
Anybody over the age of 60. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and people we they do have to sign up ahead of time, and a lot of times people are like, "I don't know if I'm coming." So we're working through the nuts and bolts because at one point we were having people call in, and then I was calling Neighborhood House, and the cook got a little like, "That's a little bit too much." So, but we always have bagels and snacks and stuff for people if they do run out of food and you came and they weren't expecting you. But also Neighborhood House has been very generous, so we generally that doesn't happen. They give us 5 or 6 extra meals. Um, so, yeah, and they're hot. I mean, you could walk off the street because that's what our Meals on Wheels program is. It's trying to get people out of their houses into a communal meal so that they do socialize.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the community, the market, and them realizing that they need this. So how's the community responded? Do you have any stories that stand out on once you've implemented this into the community? How any any stories that will really pop out to you?
I think there's one in particular, but there's many. Um, we have one gal who is a caregiver of her husband who hasn't been out of the house except to go to the grocery store and do errands for, I'd say, decades. And when she came, she, after the first kinda understanding what we were doing, burst into tears. She said, "This is a lifesaver. I have other people to talk to. I have I can do something else other than be stuck in this house," and, it's helping her cope. I mean, she tells us every time before she walks out the door how much, it helps her to relieve her stress. Because she can leave him alone, she just it just not for long periods of time. So, that's one story. Another gentleman lost his wife, unexpectedly. They both had just retired and were kinda getting the travel plan going, and she died suddenly. And so he was in a grief group at that church that, supports the Life Together Center, and they recommended that he come over, and he was like, "Wow, wow, I have" it just he said it's just carrying him through, the days because the days are long if you planned on spending time with your spouse. Another gal, she had some disfiguring surgery from cancer and then had a stroke. And so she told us after she came a couple of times, she said, I always thought I was pretty. And, aging always changes that perception. But with the surgery and the stroke, I was sure no one would want to look at me. And I had not gotten out of my house hardly at all. But when I came here, nobody even really acted like they noticed, and we're over laughing and carrying on and enjoying ourselves, and she said, "You've saved my life. You have saved my life because I really didn't have anything to hope for." And so those are, yeah, just I could go on. We had a daughter call us, this week, and her mother is starting with early stages of dementia, and she's working and got older children, and she was desperate, to try to help her mom while she's busy, taking care of her family, and she found us online, read up about us, and called and said, "Please call me back and explain what you're doing." And so I did, and she burst into tears. She goes, "You don't know what an answer to prayer this is, because my mom, she couldn't she couldn't make friends with a rock." She needs people. And there's where do you take someone that needs people and can just be? She said she wasn't appropriate for senior world. And certainly, we wouldn't be able to afford it because she doesn't need that. Um, so those are the things that keep me messing with these grants and doing the work, because I know it's not a nice to have, Peoria. It is a must. You must make this choice now. Many senior centers in most communities are funded by a, a mixture of funding, usually some tax dollars, grants, donations, sponsorships. I mean, no one's got the whole check. But if your community values the well-being of older adults who are taxpayers, who helped make the city what they are, then you provide a service for those who are able to participate, because everybody wins. Everybody wins. Families win, of course, the person wins. Families win because they know their loved one has comfort and friends. Doctors love it because people then are more motivated to take their medicine and they're less sick. That's research based. And we don't have to worry about filling up nursing homes or people draining their entire accounts to take care of themselves because they're taking care of themselves. No, there's no drawback. None.
Wow.
Absolutely none.
Well, this is great. I mean, you showed us several different examples of how you brought purpose into the lives of people. It could be the elder or those that are helping the elder, but you
Right.
brought uh, purpose into their life to help them. So that's
Mm.
great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So you touched about this a little bit just at the end here about funding and sustainability. Those are big challenges for nonprofits. So how are you building partnerships or support at the center?
That is my task now that I'm not that I'm retired. That is my goal this year. So we are writing grants more than we have. We're going to petition city council. We have a proclamation, and we've done that 2 years running. This will be our third. Um, and my pitch to them this year is, yes, September is Senior Center Month. And yes, you allow us to proclaim that. That's nice. However, next year we should be ribbon cutting, because it's not that expensive. 2 salaries, rent, utilities, and supplies. That's it. And what a return on an investment. So tax dollars, we've paid them. There's no reason at least a portion should be going to this. So that's one avenue, tax dollars, whether they like it or not. Second is sponsorships, because there's a lot of businesses. There's no reason that, look at the investment that people have made in businesses. And so it's a win-win for sponsorships. We've done a gala, we've done our fundraising, so we'll continue to look for the fundraising that's worth our effort and what yields us the most. And that also gets our name out. for, even just and Avantis and Allwins have all been very supportive. Walmart. I mean, there are businesses who are pretty savvy who realize that partnerships work well. So that's our game plan. We have a budget. Park District, that's another area where most cities get some funding through the Park District. So we've got our work cut out for us, but it's a reasonable task. It's not an unreasonable ask. So,
So just the other day, one of the groups I was at, we were at the Ronald McDonald House. And what I saw there, there's a lot of sponsorships there. They have different wings or different rooms or whatever that were sponsored by different businesses and excuse me, different businesses in the area. Um, is that something that you're utilizing or are you looking to promote to have businesses, like you said, Walmart and
right.
all that?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. Um, what I'm doing is 100% volunteer, um, as an executive director, and so just 3 months into retirement, I now have the bandwidth, um, and board development, getting people from the community in the business world is another key stakeholder. So yeah, it's definitely on our radar. Because why would we? I mean, everybody wins if we get those sponsorships. Um, I will say that it is harder to get support for older adults. Um, so why that is a cultural thing. I had at the Nest with the Economic Development Council, um, early on, I had a wonderful mentor who is from China, was from China. He's moved to another city now. Grew up, I mean, finished his degree at MIT and was here in Peoria for a couple of years. And when he actually taught our board about entrepreneurship and the cycle and how to test your product, and he did a very good training for us. And his observation to me was, "Your culture does not respect elders." And I said, "You're right, Andrew. I don't know. I'm that it's true in America. Um, we have that in our marketing. It's very youth focused. It's changing though. It's changing because businesses aren't going to lose money. So they're being more inclusive of who they have in their advertising and all that kind of thing. But we, as we age, have to advocate for ourselves as well. So the other thing he said as an encouragement was, he said, make Graceland a brave place, a safe place, but a brave place where people can explore and learn new things. So I've taken that to heart because it is intimidating to come into a new group by yourself. It just is. Um, and so it's very welcoming. Our group is very diverse. Um, People are welcomed at our table, our registration table, walked in, feel comfortable. No one's sitting on a table by themselves. In fact, people won't let them. Like, nope, come over here. You have to sit with us. Um, so yeah, we will, we are working on the sustainability piece, on the culture piece. It's the right thing to do. So
Love it, love it.
yeah.
So I guess in your opinion, what's the biggest misconception that people have about retirement or aging?
That it's negative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas the happiness curves of people, again, people have opinions. If they would read a little bit and look past, be curious. Look past what you think you know. The happiness curve is actually highest when we're young and don't have responsibilities, and then at the end of life, because you let go of things you weren't able to get done. You embrace what has been good. So the happiness curve is actually increases as you get older, and I don't think we talk enough about that. Um, yeah, and again, like the speaker called us out, the other just yesterday, our attitudes as we age and our words, um, you know, yeah, so we have a new ache that we woke up today. Oh well. You know, we showing our families that we love ourselves where we're at and are, welcoming the next chapter because really, if we take care of ourselves, sure, things happen. But when we take care of ourselves, we can live healthier, longer, functional lives.
Well, I like with your name, purpose. I like the idea that I think a misconception would be that once you hit retirement and your age, there's no purpose. Whereas you're bringing that purpose into their lives and giving them not just one, but giving them a plethora of different purpose options that they can have once you get that retirement
Right.
age.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that, when you're retiring thinking, well, I don't have money to buy a second home and live in, some warm climate, or I don't have the money to go to Europe or whatnot. Well, a lot of us don't. So then what? Well, goodness gracious, come on over, come figure out some different things that you can do. You know, my end goal, honestly, would be to have intergenerational programming because we know when young children have a full attention from an elder, they grow up feeling more secure in themselves. We know that there are just so many programs. Um, Around as examples. There are colleges who have intergenerational housing. So college students live with an older adult, do some chores, and as part of that, they get their housing, and it's part of their curriculum. Like maybe they're learning to be a social worker or a physical therapist or a nurse, or marketing, you know, and then they learn from the person that they're living with that older perspective. The programs I've seen, there's a program, it used to be called Encore, and now it's called Cogenerate. And they've done programs with universities where the older adults and the students have done programs. There's one on um, dancing that the older adult does what they're able to do, and then the younger dancer does their piece. And I was in tears watching it because it was so beautiful, the expression, and many of these had older adults had always wanted to dance, but didn't really have that opportunity. Oh, it was amazing. Or students like in the photography or marketing, have done, like, collages of the person's life, or perspective or, it's endless the possibilities. And again, not tremendously expensive and no one, it's a total win-win. So why would we not do these things? Yeah,
Great, great.
yeah.
So, Peggy, how can local businesses or community members get involved or support your mission?
We have a website. They can go to our website and learn about us and our 800 number. They can call and leave a message. Let me look it up because I always want to make sure they have, and they can email. We have Graceland Center for Purposeful Aging. So I'm pretty, and we're very active on Facebook. So if they can contact me, I would love to sit down and meet with them and let them know what it is that we're doing and how we could work together. Um, After this next set of grants, that's my next job is to reach out for sponsorships. Our 800 number is 833-503-7773. And our address and phone number and Facebook are also at the bottom of our website, which is gracelandcenter.com.
Okay, well, I'll include that all in the on the card at the end of this video for people to have that available for them.
You know, One other thing I wanted to mention, Bill, was why we called it Graceland. Um, it's kind of funny. We had many different we vetted many different titles, you know. For example, the senior center in Normal is called the Activity and Recreation Center. Um, Miller Center in Pekin, I think, is named after the person who donated the building to the park district. So everyone's name doesn't always speak to what it is, other than, whatever. So we were trying to figure out what was a welcoming. We finally got Purposeful Aging down, but the name Graceland came to me. My husband and I got to see Paul Simon, and part of that was his Graceland tour. And part of that song was, "We're going to Graceland, we're going to Graceland," because it was a place for hope, and good things. And so I came up with the idea to call it Graceland. And my husband said, "Oh, Peggy, they're going to think of Elvis." And I said, "Well, number one, marketing is about name recognition, so it sticks in your mind. That's what we need to do, is stick in your mind. And secondly, I want it to be a place of grace and dignity for older adults, because those are the missing elements in our culture, that we can age gracefully. We can accept whatever limitations that are coming our way, but that doesn't mean they have to limit us. We can still age with our dignity as a human and our ability to fulfill the purpose that we have." So that's where Graceland came from.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you for letting us know about that.
yeah.
So I guess to end this, so what's your vision for the future, both for Graceland and for how we support older adults more broadly?
Very good. I think for us to support older adults more broadly is to embrace the fact that, as you mentioned at the very beginning, we are all aging and we have a choice. We have a choice in how we age, how we take care of ourselves, how we view ourselves. And when we view ourselves, not negatively with aging, I was in a meeting mm, at the health department, and a woman mentioned that she was turning 60 with trepidation and negativity. And I looked at her directly and I said, "Congratulations." And she was like, incredulous. I was saying, "Congratulations." I said, "There's an alternative. You could not be celebrating your 60th birthday." And so I think when we speak negatively of aging, we're speaking negatively to who we were going to become and of other people. Well, that's not very nice. So why do it, right? So I think as a culture, as individuals, the first place is always the only place we can change is ourselves. So change our own perspective of what it means to be aging, um and make the efforts then to take care of what you can take care of, um and enjoy it, right? Because we don't know what tomorrow means. My vision for Graceland is that within 2 years, next year, I want it to be fully funded so that we can launch 5 days a week. Um, because there are people that do have other activities, maybe at their church, maybe chores, maybe a couple people are still working part time. So if we had programming Monday through Friday, during the day, that would open the doors for people to have a little more flexibility in their schedule. My ultimate goal is for this to be a standalone center, um, maybe in collaboration with other businesses, um, and be available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, maybe even into the evening hours. Have property so that people can, like the Bloomington Normal Center has community gardens. I mean, there's such a richness that can be brought to the community. Some of the people in the Economic Development Council and different groups looking to grow Peoria as a city wanted to become a retirement hub. And my challenge to them is, if I'm moving from Florida or Texas or who knows where to come back to Peoria, Why would I, as an older adult, come back? Now, there is Ollie, and Ollie is an amazing resource through Bradley. Um, not every day, just episodically courses, which are really good, and they have a nice community. There's the Riverfront Museum has a monthly meeting. There are community meetings, but there's nothing daily. And when I've talked to people move from Chicago, from Florida, from California, from Arizona, and they're like, what do you mean there's not a center here? What do you mean? And so if I'm going to choose between here and Bloomington Normal or Springfield for a place to live, even if my family lives here, what is that, a half hour away? I would choose Normal because I've got a place to go. It's that simple, I mean, so if and they are connected with ISU. I mean, they're 25 years. They've already been doing this 25 years. So of course they're well grounded. It's going to take us a while too, but that's my vision for Peoria, for someone to take this and run with it.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to see what you bring to us in the future here, Peggy.
Thank you.
So I
Yeah.
just want to thank you, Peggy. So everyone, Peggy Jacques is here. She has proven that retirement doesn't have to be a time of withdrawal. It can be a launching pad for purpose, connection, and growth. Through the Graceland Center, she's empowering older adults in Peoria to live with energy, dignity, and meaning. If you're inspired by Peggy's work, consider sharing this episode, visiting the center, or finding your own way to support purposeful aging in your community. So until next time, keep your biz buzzing. Thanks for tuning in to the Buzz on Biz podcast. We hope you enjoyed learning about another incredible local business making a difference. This podcast is brought to you by To Grow My Biz, where we help small businesses grow smarter using automation and AI. If you're a small business owner looking to save time, generate more leads, or stop losing leads, and want to serve your customers better, we're here to help. So visit to growmybiz.com/call-bill to schedule a quick call. Let's talk. Or you can check out our tools and services at togrowmybiz.com and our AI site, ai.togrowmybiz.com. We'd love to help you grow. Let's talk soon, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Buzz on Biz.